Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of All Access AM. Happy Monday. I am Billy Embody. Thanks for joining me as we have tons to get to after the New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. That was huge for the ACC. And, of course, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator changes in the league as well that we'll have to get to on this Monday. The transfer portal is rolling for colleges across the country after it opened January 2nd, and visits are happening, commitments are happening. We've got so much to talk about this week. And, of course, ACC basketball kicked off over the New Year's Eve day range for you guys. So tons to get to on the show, tons to get to this week on the show, and we're going to break it all up for you guys as best we know how. I will say this. Wednesday or Thursday, we're going to kind of have a transfer portal bonanza of sorts. We'll preview Miami versus Ole Miss in the Fiesta Bowl. So looking forward to doing that, as well as the Hurricanes are one win away from punching their ticket to a national championship game. We've got so much to talk about, and I'm excited to do it with you guys on this Monday. Again, I'm Billy Embody. We do this 7 to 8 a.m. Central Time, 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. We appreciate you guys being here on the channel. Do me a favor and subscribe to our channel. That is the way you can help grow the show, is if we grow our subscribers. And we've got an easy way to do that for you if you're watching on YouTube via your computer or your TV or wherever you're watching it. You can scan the QR code that just dropped in the corner of your screen, or you can check it out in the podcast description below this. You can just click subscribe and it'll take you right to the channel, and you'll click confirm, and there you go. You'll be subscribed. So we appreciate all of you who have done that for the channel. And we appreciate our friends at Security National Bank for sponsoring the Monday show. Big sponsors for us. We appreciate their entire group over there at Security National Bank that continues to deliver banking that is personal. It is all about relationships in that world. They continue that with exceptional customer service and trusted financial advice, and they make a difference in the lives of those they serve because it's a priority for them. It's a family-run business still to this day, and they've done it for decades now. And so we encourage you to reach out to them, 402-344-7300. That is Security National Bank. Go to securitynational.bank for more information on how they can help you in your financial journey, whether it's personal banking, your business banking, any of those things. They can help you out, our friends at Security National Bank. Let's jump into the bowl season first, and then we will get to all of the coordinator changes, some of those major things that have dropped in the ACC. We'll, of course, talk ACC basketball. We'll kind of run down a bunch of storylines that have happened over the last week or so that we'll touch on as league play did open since we last had a show. And I want to, of course, lead off with Miami, Ohio State. And that is the big one. But it was a 4-0 finish for this ACC to what was an incredible bowl success, I would say, for the league, going 8-4, I believe. And they were able to, set themselves up for an offseason to remember, especially with the way Miami has played and advanced to the semifinals of the college football playoff. So it has been all good for the ACC, which is a good thing for all of you listeners out there. And when we look at Miami, Ohio State, this was such a fun game to watch. I put the title of this as Miami crushes Ohio State because I feel that's what they did. They went out there and imposed their will on the Buckeyes. They were able to hold them to 332 yards, and Miami was not anything incredible offensively, 291 total yards, and both teams had 18 first downs, but it was the third down efficiency that Miami was able to execute well, 7-14. They were able to keep drives alive when they needed it, and they still ran the football. 153 yards on the ground. Carson Beck managed the game just fine, setting up a rematch, nearly setting up a rematch with Georgia, of course, but Ole Miss had some things to say about that. We'll talk about them more on Wednesday and give you a good preview of the Rebels. I know a lot about them, so feel like we'll give you plenty to mull over there when you look at them. But what a great football game! Only 2 penalties in this one. I believe the first penalty was accepted in the third or fourth quarter. So really, really great job by these two programs bringing it. I thought these were two evenly matched teams, but Miami's defensive line just came through for the Hurricanes. Building that defensive line for Mario Cristobal has been just as important as building his offensive line, the baby, of course, of Mario Cristobal, and where he's made so much success in his career. But he knows that defensive line led by Ruben Bain, Akeem Mesidor, and so many of those guys that are out there for the Hurricanes was so important. And man, has it paid off for them in such a big way to limit Ohio State and Bo Jackson to 11 carries, 55 yards. Julian Sayin threw 2 interceptions. He was under duress a good bit of the night. As a former Miami Hurricane who transferred to SMU, Elijah Roberts likes to say, man, he was stressed. That is what that Miami defense did to that Ohio State offense, is they stressed him out, and Miami was able to take advantage of it. It was a game that I felt like played right into Miami's hands. We talked about it going into that one. I picked Miami to win outright and to advance to the semifinals. Now, I did have them falling in the semifinals to Georgia. Will that change? We'll talk about that on Wednesday. But Miami built a 14-0 lead and just rode that. It got interesting in the third quarter when Ohio State was able to mount that drive, that 11-play, 82-yard drive that ended with a Bo Jackson touchdown. But by then, Miami had really kind of settled in and was playing from ahead. And that was the story of this ball game, was Miami setting the tone early with their defensive play and the offense being able to capitalize on it with a Mark Fletcher touchdown from Carson Beck and a Keontae Scott 72-yard interception return for a touchdown, which was one of the more incredible plays. You'll see him jumping the route, him going right through Jeremiah Smith to pick that ball off. Just an outstanding play that will haunt, Julian Zayin, I would imagine, in his dreams for a little bit there. That'll take a minute for him to get over, but that is the type of player that we knew Keontae Scott was going to be going into this game. We talked about him being an X factor of sorts and kind of what he had brought to the table. And guys like Jacoby Thomas, who iced the game, those are guys that we circled as far as being critical, but especially Keontae Scott. And he makes a play in the first half that is going to go down in Miami lore. So a huge performance for this Miami team from its defense to allow Carson Beck and this offense to play very similar to the way that they played against Texas A&M, being able to just go out there and I feel like not have to worry about losing the game, but also they were able to really just, I think, play a style that was kind of right up the alley of that Texas A&M game. I think they were more so looking to not lose this game as well. It was a very similar style, and you look at the way they went out there and iced that game with that touchdown drive in the fourth quarter. That was exactly what you wanted to see. I was watching the game in San Diego with some friends of mine, and ahead of the SMU game, and I said, this drive right here, there was some kind of talk about, okay, well, you don't want to give the ball back with too much time or whatever. And I said, I don't know if they're not going to just run this thing out. And sure enough, they basically did. So 5 minutes on the clock or so, they were able to take it all off. Mark Fletcher was critical in that as well, and had a couple of big runs, but they were just able to run it down Ohio State's throat, and that was because they established a run early, and guys like Shamar Brown and even Gerard Pringle got in there and had a nice run in the first half that I kind of remember vividly, at least. So I don't think I have that wrong, but they were just able to rotate guys, and Mario Cristobal and that staff, they trusted their guys late in that game to go out and execute. So a tremendous, tremendous win for Miami, a huge deal for this conference as well. And you've got to give it credit. Got to give them credit. Mario Cristobal had them ready to go, had them confident. And now that they've made it to these playoffs, you can tell that was maybe just what the doctor ordered. Miami just needed to make it to the college football playoff, and the rest would take care of itself. So kudos to Miami and what they did. And I just think it would have been so cool to obviously see Carson Beck take on Georgia, but that is not meant to be. They're going to take on a very dangerous Ole Miss team that is playing motivated, kind of playing like Miami, playing like, obviously somebody disrespected them and they want to prove people wrong. And that's the way these two teams have played in the playoffs. And so that is going to be such a fun Fiesta Bowl. And on the other side of it, we've got a rematch, Indiana versus Oregon, in the other semifinal matchup. So great football games ahead this week. It's crazy to think that they are, coming right up, but we'll be here to preview and react to it all as Miami gets a shot to punch its ticket to a national championship, which would just be awesome for this conference, especially after the strong bowl season that it had. So tremendous stuff for Miami. The game was kind of a minute ago now, but I did want to open with that and give them their flowers because they deserve it after what they did to Ohio State, a dominant performance and kind of exposed the Buckeyes a little bit for what they seemed to be, pretty much all year, which was a team that you wondered, okay, with these super conferences, what are you actually going to look like when you have to play some teams that, really have a little bit of a backbone. And that's what we found out. Texas ended up being a little bit of a fugazi, and Ohio State ends up winning that one. Kind of a very simple ball game, kind of the opposite of the Miami game where, Texas didn't have anything going offensively, but both teams played great defense, I felt like, for the most part. And Texas came out on top in that one. And then, other than that, they played Illinois and Michigan. And those are two teams that are, just not up to a college football playoff level. So once Ohio State finally got tested, they lost, their next two games to Indiana and Miami, and they were so close to really setting the table for that first round bye, being the red flag of all red flags for college football playoff teams. And then Indiana was able to do what it did. Of course, Oregon beat Texas Tech, and then you had Ole Miss beating Georgia. So, that kind of knocked off that continued a lot of the first round bye commentary. But Ohio State is going home, and it's thanks to a Miami team that was ready to play and ready to roll. And they took it to them early. They made key plays, and they're going to play for a spot in a national championship. So Miami certainly back and is here, which Mario Cristobal loves to hear. So we've got a lot more reaction to that game, and I'm sure previewing Miami Ole Miss, which is on Thursday, January 8th at 6:30 p.m. Central Time on ESPN out in the desert in Glendale. What a great setting that'll be for Ole Miss and Miami fans to come together in that one and see which team punches their ticket right back in Miami. We'll see. That'll be that is going to be such a fun game to watch. I'm thrilled about that matchup. So looking forward to that one. Also looking forward to a lot of good things coming from our sponsor, Sportsmo. Sportsmo app is where you can go to set up your account today. It just takes seconds. You download it, Sportsmo, M-O. You download it, takes seconds. You load up some money, and you pick your college football team that you want to be donating to. Okay, donations? Yeah, anybody can do that. No, we're talking about betting on your team to do so many things on the field, whether it's sacks, touchdowns, wins, all of those things. You could circle in the Sportsmo app and say, we want to make a pledge if Miami scores 3 rushing touchdowns, if Miami grabs 5 sacks, if Miami wins. You can do all those things through the Sportsmo app and support your college football team directly in seconds.
Sportsmo lets you make a more direct impact on the game because it lets you, the fans, fund your favorite college football teams. in a straightforward way. In a you win and I'll give way. In a I need you to show me your running game is alive and then I'll donate way. These real-time tax-deductible microfunds lead to impact your team can feel. Every cent you send mixes with every drop of sweat they put in. Form your squad. Boost your friends when a play comes through. A new way to follow the game. And cha-ching, your favorite team. So what do you say, difference makers? Ready to power the play? Sportsmo. Download today. Let's smo.
And that's right. Let's smo on in this show. And we look at the 3 bowl games around the college football playoff for the ACC. And of course, bowl season now over with. The ACC going 8-4 in bowl games. Just awesome. And if you look at the ACC bowl schedule that was kind of laid out for this season, man, the ACC was so close to, I mean, I don't want to say running it up like this, but man, running it up in a way. You had a comeback for BYU that broke the hearts of Georgia Tech. You had a comeback by Cal, a comeback against Cal by Hawaii that broke their hearts. And you had, of course, Penn State. That was a clear-cut winner. Pitt couldn't hold on against East Carolina. And then I feel like I'm missing one in there somewhere as well. But an 8-4 bowl. I know I covered it pretty well. Penn State, Pitt, Georgia Tech, and Cal losing those games. But man, just a huge success. The ACC was competitive in every single game. There were games that had opt-outs, games that had players missing, for sure. But the main matchups that the ACC really needed to win, in a sense, they did. Even that Clemson Penn State one, you were looking at 2 teams just, decimated. Like most of those guys aren't even going to play for those teams in a sense, moving forward. So you have a really, really good result from this bowl season, and 8-4, just outstanding. I believe the Big Ten is also at 8-4. So it's funny that'll. I don't think they'll count that in the records as far as wins and losses, unless it's just going to be 9-4 for the Big Ten here come later this week, I guess. But because two Big Ten teams are going at it, but Miami going to have a chance to put another one up on the board there if they can get that win against Ole Miss, and it would be another win for the ACC over the SEC. So let's dive into these New Year's Eve, New Year's Day bowl games. Duke beats Arizona State in the Sun Bowl. Thrilling game here. Did not get to watch too much of this one, but Darian Mensah really teed himself up for what is going to be a kind of Heisman hopeful type of season going into 2026. He threw for 4 touchdowns. He threw for 29 of 51 in the game as well for 327 yards. He did throw an interception, but outdueled Jeff Sims just enough in a sense, organizing his offense to get this win, 42-39. Terrific job by Duke, coming out ready to go as the ACC champion to overcome an early 7-0 deficit against Arizona State. They were able to reel off a couple touchdowns. It looked like they were going to really start to roll, but man, what a fun first half. Shoot, it was 28-24 Duke at halftime, so a little defense optional out there in El Paso for the Sun Bowl. And then it was Duke that had to hang on for dear life. They came out and they extended their lead in the third quarter, and then Arizona State came roaring back to take a 39-35 lead, and this is where I had kind of picked up watching. But Duke gets the touchdown pass from Darian Mensah to Brown in the end zone. To Keyshawn Brown to get this one, or excuse me, Keyshawn Brown to get this one in the win column for the Blue Devils. This is a nice kind of springboard for Manny Diaz and company. They have their quarterback back. They did get Darian Mensah back for the 2026 season, and he had kind of looked at going pro in a weak draft class. But man, when you're going to get paid what Darian Mensah got paid, that is certainly the way to do it. And come back and play for Duke, a team that a team that you recognize that you have something going in the right direction with. So a really, really good outcome there for the Blue Devils. And then New Year's Day, everybody kind of wondering, okay, you've got SMU and Wake Forest going into this January 1st matchup against with Wake Forest playing Mississippi State and SMU playing Arizona. SMU taking on a top 20 team, Wake Forest taking on a team from the SEC. 5-7 Mississippi State, but the Demon Deacons were able to come out and show that Mississippi State really shouldn't have gone to a bowl, but APR and bowl opt-outs aside, that was a matchup that the ACC really couldn't lose. So congratulations to the Demon Deacons for taking care of business. Robbie Ashford, went out there and threw for 3 touchdown passes on top of throwing for 300 yards. When I saw Mississippi State go up 3-0, I was like, okay, they're going to grind this out. We just don't need to see this as a league. But Wake Forest bowed up. It was still kind of a defense optional game, which was surprising. If this was in the regular season and some of the things that we had known Wake Forest for had been in place. I think they have a few guys that are in the transfer portal. This game probably plays out very differently on both sides of it. But Wake Forest just had kind of lost some of their top defensive players, and Mississippi State was able to put up 400 yards of offense. But what was even crazier was watching Wake Forest put up 451 yards of total offense. Had this one watching side by side on the multi-box with them being pretty much at the same time, kind of off by, I think, 30 minutes or so. But Wake Forest was able to, kind of play a good enough brand of football to get this win. And they just kind of pulled away in that fourth quarter and second half as a whole. And they nearly put up 30 points in the second half of this game to grab the win. And just, watching Mississippi State really kind of run out of gas. It was 15-9 at the end of the first half, and you kind of felt like, okay, if Wake Forest can get something going early in the second, that might be, in a game like this, the knockout blow. And sure enough, it was. They come out, they score a touchdown, 3 plays, 75 yards, and were able to get that at the end of the third quarter to go up 23-9, and from there it was over. And it was quite the exclamation point on a season for Wake Forest. That was a lot of fun for the Demon Deacons as they go 9-4 in Jake Dickert's first season. I don't know if we formally handed out awards on the All Access AM show this year, but he was my vote for Coach of the Year. I just think I always am going to pick those things kind of relative to the expectations preseason, right? Like, you could have picked a Brent Key. You probably could have picked Tony Elliott, with what they were able to do in getting to the ACC championship game. But Wake Forest, it was just in kind of shambles. And I thought the job that Jake Dickert did and the way he got them ready to go week in, week out was just outstanding. And they got a win over UVA, even though Chandler Morris didn't play. So Jake Dickert was my pick for Coach of the Year. He did an outstanding job. Now the next step for Wake Forest, like we talked about on our Christmas gift giving episode, Wake Forest needs to continue to step up in the NIL world and give Jake Dickert some more resources to compete, some more resources to put things in place that they can be successful with and find a way to retain some of this top talent. Obviously, there's always going to be players that, at a certain point are going to chase a massive bag. Matim Igaragubo, their big defensive tackle, is going to command 7 figures reportedly on the open market now, and that's what he's doing. Man, the style of play that Jake Dickert wants to play and the way they managed it this year, it would have been nice to have a guy like that get retained. And so those are things that's the next step for Wake Forest is getting some of those guys back and keeping them in place. So it's going to be an interesting challenge for them to, get back to the level that they were at this season. But they certainly made a huge impact on this league and really stepped up to put them in position to be a team that you could talk about going into 2026 as maybe a dark horse ACC championship team. I mean, dark horse, they're still going to be very involved in the ACC championship race, but you just don't know with some of the losses they've suffered. So it's going to be fascinating to watch him try to follow up what was a incredible first year in the ACC for Jake Dickert, coming over from Washington State. So great job, great finish to the season. And speaking of great finish, it was a not so great finish, but SMU did finish off a top 20 win over Arizona in the Holiday Bowl out in San Diego. A really fun game with the casket toss going on at halftime, but SMU raced out to a 24-0 lead. And then Arizona raced back with 19 points to SMU 0 points in the second half. A game of two halves, completely for Kevin Jennings and company. They were Kevin Jennings was, I think, 40 yards short of topping the highest passing yardage total against Arizona's defense at half. And then he proceeded to come up 10 yards short of hitting that 288 yards in the game as a whole. SMU opened up with a kind of reverse flea flicker. They hit Matthew Hibner for an 80-yard reception. He was able to get all the way down to the one, and then TJ Harden punched it in for a 7-0 lead. From there, SMU built a 24-0 lead going into halftime, and they really needed every bit of it, because in the second half, Kevin Jennings threw 3 interceptions. Now, if you follow me at ontheponyexpress.com, I'll be back on the normal podcast routine this week over there. But, some of those interceptions, I mean, one was unbelievable to watch. I don't know what Kevin Jennings was doing. All he had to do was flick it out of bounds and live to fight another day on a third down, and he doesn't. And Arizona comes up with a jump ball, tip ball, and I mean that truly was just an unbelievable decision. But the two other ones, you could argue he should not have been throwing the football. And really the first one, or the third one, he should not have been throwing the football. They're down on Arizona's side of the field. They're milking the clock. They had made some really nice plays. I believe it's relatively short yardage, and great play by Wilson, the Arizona linebacker, a Texas guy playing in his final game for the Wildcats, and he makes a great interception on a he do fake blitz and dropped out, and Kevin Jennings didn't see him and throws it right to him. But that's a play that he should be just coaching staff should just be calling a run play. I'm sorry, you're up late, you're trying to run out the clock. You'd been successful doing it, and your star quarterback should see that. I'm not saying he's free from scrutiny there, but you got to run the football, man. And Kevin Jennings had a couple times to ice this game and didn't. And Rhett Lashley had SMU in a 2nd and 2 after an 8-yard run on, I think, their opening drive of the second half, and goes two straight passes. Granted, I think 2 straight drops in those, or 1 throwaway and then a drop. But SMU, they were able to get some timely stops. Alexander Kilgore got an interception that thwarted an Arizona drive that was looking promising, and they get a couple of key 2-point conversion stops as well in that game. I think, 2 of them, and Arizona was then forced to play the 3-possession game kind of all the way back till the end, and so that was just too much to overcome for Noah Fafita, who SMU only got home, I believe, to sack him once in the game. Yes, once. But holy cow, did they have opportunities at probably like 5 sacks. It was crazy. But Noah Fafita, you got to give him a lot of credit. Just a ton of sudden movements to extend plays and throw touchdown passes. 2 of his 3, I believe, were just stellar, escaping the pocket, kind of stepping up in the pocket. He's a smaller guy in a sense, so he was able to duck and move around and just make some incredible throws to keep Arizona, or to get Arizona back into the game. And then Ahmad Moses, a senior, playing his final game for SMU, he led them with 13 tackles and a pass breakup that really should have been an interception. That was another one that kind of games are ifs and buts and things like that. But Ahmad Moses could have had a huge interception, but he recovers the onside kick. That was really a ground ball that was really difficult to field for him. So Ahmad Moses gets the defensive MVP honors. Amir Knight, who had 104 yards receiving on 7 receptions, gets the offensive MVP honors for this game. And Rhett Lashley gets the somewhat eggnog bath from Brian Bumgardner, an SMU alum, and Kevin from The Office, for those who don't know. But SMU wins its first bowl game since 2012. They did end up going into the game, I think, maybe favored or maybe just a point underdogs in that one. So the line moved late towards SMU. But I kind of said this before the game. I thought SMU was going to get up for this game. It was a top 20 team. SMU is usually good at getting ready to go and ready to rock against top 25 teams. And they did that. They came out after a month-long break and absolutely were beating the brakes off of Arizona. And this game really, SMU got down inside the 5 late in the first half. And Kevin Jennings, 1, almost throws an interception, but 2, maybe they find a way to punch that in, and maybe none of this happens. Who knows? A lot of maybes there. But they were able to absolutely dominate this Arizona team. And, that there's something to be said for that. And granted, this SMU team, this was kind of the perfect kind of finality for this team, which was Jekyll and Hyde a little bit at times this year. You had the high of beating Miami, and then you had some of the lows of losing at Wake Forest, losing at Cal. But man, the first half SMU Mustangs, you get that first half SMU Mustangs most of this year, maybe let's say 11 out of 12 games, you're looking at a very different result for this season. But what a finish for SMU to get a bowl win, to get one over a top 20 team. Look, if this was a middle of the road group of 5 team that they would have been taking on, I don't want to sound alarm bells because they won, but that is a game that you can hold on to now and at least kind of one, as Rhett Lashley said Thursday before the game, not talk about the bowl drought anymore. That's number one. That's important. They got what they need to get done. And they did it because they were ready to go. They did it because they were able to execute. They were able to shut down Arizona's offense for the most part, bend but not break defensively, get off the field, and limit Arizona State to a really, really low percentage on third downs early in that game in particular. And that was the difference for this SMU team, was a fast start. And they were beating the brakes off of Arizona in the first half. So SMU comes away with a bowl win, and that is a huge deal for, I know, this fan base. It is now time for these coaches to turn their attention, as college coaches do across the country, to the portal, and they'll look to rebuild this thing and pick up some pieces that push them over the top, and they already have. And we'll talk about that on Transfer Portal Bonanza later on this week. But SMU finishes 9-4, a season that is kind of filled with what ifs, but also one that Rhett Lashley and company can continue to build off of, a third straight 9-win season for the SMU Mustangs. So look, before we get into the changes at coordinator across the ACC, we are going to tell you about our friends at Corporate Magic. Corporate Magic is an incredible event production company that can do it all for you. And they can bring you events to your sales teams, to your fans, to your TV viewers that are second to none. They make that special event happen, that memorable experience that can be seen by millions across the globe. They can make that happen. So whether it's national sales meetings, whether it's concerts or streamed events, they have the expertise to make it an incredible experience. They have the ability to plan, design, and the technology to keep your audiences fully engaged. So reach out to Corporate Magic today. That is corporatemagic.com. Big stages demand a partner who knows how to perform when the stakes are high. That's Corporate Magic, corporatemagic.com. All right, do want to say this before we get into these offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator changes across this league. We'll hit on some of them. I think I got all of them in my rundown over the course of the New Year's Eve, New Year's Day holiday break. But we want to say we appreciate you guys as we go into 2026. Please subscribe to our channel, All Access AM. You can see the QR code in your screen. If you're on your phone watching right now, one, thank you. But two, look down and see if you're subscribed. Right below this, kind of scroll down a little bit and see if you're subscribed to the channel. If it says subscribe, hit that button. If it says subscribed, thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate you guys making this channel what it is, and we're excited to grow with you guys in 2026. So please either scan the QR code or hit that subscribe button for me on the channel, All Access AM. We appreciate you guys so much for joining us here Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 to 8 a.m. Central, 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern Time. We also appreciate it when you guys jump in the chat. You can jump in on the Spotify comments if you're listening to this later on. We appreciate all of you who listen on iTunes as well. And we do take live comments. So we appreciate all of you guys who jump in the chat. All right, let's get to these offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator changes across the league. Let's start with Georgia Tech, because Georgia Tech took a long road to replacing Buster Faulkner, who left for Florida, who did just get a commitment from Aaron Philo to be his quarterback for the Gators this year, or most likely his quarterback for the Gators this year. But a Yellow Jacket legend is headed back to Atlanta. George Godsey is going to be the offensive coordinator, working with his former teammate Brent Key. He does replace Buster Faulkner. He comes from 20 years of coaching experience, 15 of which spent in the NFL. He was the Baltimore Ravens tight ends coach from 2022 to 2025. He was the quarterbacks coach with the Miami Dolphins as well. They call him Goose, and he is coming in to bring the offense back to the level that they all expect as Haynes King leaves. They're going to go out and find a quarterback. We'll be talking about that, I'm sure, on Transfer Portal Bonanza. But he has an incredible career as a Yellow Jacket quarterback. He was a first-team All-American from the Pro Football Writers Association and a second-team All-ACC selection in 2000. And they went to a couple bowl games under Godsey. So when he left, he ended up playing for my hometown Tampa Bay Storm in the Arena League before heading off to begin his coaching career. Started off at UCF and then worked for George O'Leary, a former Georgia Tech head coach, and then moved to the NFL ranks, bouncing around to New England, also working with the Texans, Lions, Dolphins, and, of course, the Ravens. And he was an offensive coordinator in 2015-16 with the Texans, and then co-offense coordinator with the Dolphins in 2021. So Georgia Tech does have its staff in place for the most part. They do have co-offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach Chris Winkie on there. They have tight ends coach Nathan Brock, and then new offensive line coach Alan Mogridge, or Moridge. I don't know if the G is silent there. And then new running backs coach Jimmy Smith, who comes over from, he's been around a bunch. I believe he comes from the SEC, but that's where I know him from. So they do have the open receiver spot still there as well. But they've got some things to work out there for Brent Key and his staff still, as they look to figure that out and put this in the right direction for the future for Brent Key. And it's interesting, going with a Georgia Tech guy, going with somebody who's going to be trusted by you, obviously a former teammate, somebody who's all in on being a Yellow Jacket. And this is, and I think I kind of maybe spend a little bit of time on this, but in this coaching world, with so much being about money or being about this or being about that and kind of superficial things, Brent Key goes back into his bag and looks at, a former teammate and somebody with a ton of NFL experience when you're going through this new day and age of college football. And I do wonder how much we'll end up seeing of this. But how much do we see well-qualified people who can be the coordinator or be a position coach or be the head coach of their alma mater go back there because it's, one, a great place that they enjoy being. So let's start that off right there. Most places, that have, alma mater attached to it mean a lot to the people. Most people have good experiences, seems like to me. And do you bring in people like that who want to stay, who want to have continuity, people you're close to. Because guess what? You're having these large personnel, large recruiting, large scouting departments that are kind of starting to take over all of those decisions that might have made an impact earlier on, right? When assistant coaches had to recruit, scout, game plan, coach, develop, all those things. And they still have to do all those things. Don't get me wrong. These guys are getting paid a lot of money to do those things. And ultimately, they are the ones that feel the heat when all of that happens. But the reality is, we're also seeing a shift in terms of scouting, in terms of the payment amounts for positions. And some of these things are changing for position coaches and coordinators as far as what is in their lap, as far as the players that they have to work with. So bring someone who cares. Bring in someone who cares about a university, cares about an athletics department and football team, who's going to give it his all. I wonder how much that played an impact for Brent Key here, and finding somebody he could trust to be the offensive coordinator and know that he's going to have a guy who's going to be there if all things work out for years. And that would be his goal, is to see it work out. And because he likes Georgia Tech and loves Georgia Tech, he can also be an accessory to selling the program in a positive way. So fascinating to see how that works out there for Brent Key and company. They are having to replace a defense coordinator, and Blake Gideon is leaving to head to Texas as a defensive assistant after one season in Atlanta as defensive coordinator. He was hired to lead the Yellow Jackets defense last season, and it did not go well this year. He came over after being safeties coach at Texas from 2021 to 2024. Now he is back in Austin working with new Texas defensive coordinator Will Muschamp. Incredible. Can't believe I just said that. But we're living in an alternate universe, and more on that when we get to Clemson. But Gideon's defense allowed 25 points a game, 399 yards per game. They were in the bottom half of the ACC. I do wonder if this was a natural opportunity that kind of worked out for Brent Key, where Blake Gideon can just go and head out, and everybody's okay with all of that. And maybe that is something that has happened. And I'm intrigued to see how this works out. But they did come in and bring in Vinny Sunseri as well, a veteran defensive coach who I've kind of at least watched for a while from afar, and it's going to be a really intriguing deal to see how that works out as well. But I don't believe they have hired a new defensive coordinator just yet. I don't think Vinny Sunseri is getting that role, but he is coming on as a safeties coach, replacing Corey Peoples, who was not retained. And he's a former Florida assistant, is spending time under Billy Napier and Billy Gonzalez. And he was the safeties coach at University of Washington and was a part of the Patriots staff. This is somebody who's come up through the Alabama ranks as well and coached under Nick Saban. He was really kind of a hot name early in his career, and had a good playing career, was picked in the NFL draft by the Saints, and then got done with that and started into coaching. So he takes over as safeties coach. I do assume they're going to go out and try to find a defensive coordinator to work with Vinny Sunseri. But this is where it gets interesting for Brent Key. Where do you go in this regard? Because you have Jess Simpson and Kyle Pope back on the defensive line in front, and Tyler Santucci, maybe somebody to watch if he might be open to a return to Atlanta. But this is going to be a really interesting job to see where this goes, because they have to nail it. They have to get on the right side of this defensive situation. And I think a lot of it, does have, I think a lot, I would say a lot of this has to do with kind of coaching. I thought there was enough defensive talent there at Georgia Tech this year to be better than what they were. I don't look back on this season and say, man, they didn't have, what were they doing? They had some players. So I'm interested to see if Brent Key take some of this money that they were paying Blake Gideon, and I don't know what the offensive coordinator is going to make yet, but maybe they go out and hire a big name. I saw Jeremy Pruitt being floated as a name, according to our friends at Jackets Online, who, if you're not a Yellow Jackets fan, spending time on Jackets Online, a part of On3 and Rivals, you're doing it wrong. So that is something to keep an eye on there, and we'll see where they go in that regard. But I mentioned Will Muschamp earlier. I mentioned an alternate universe, and I wanted to let me make sure I'm saving this for last. But yeah, the alternate universe is here, and that is Clemson hiring Chad Morris as their offensive coordinator. They are supposed to be meeting Monday morning as a board of trustees to approve his contract as the next offensive coordinator, replacing Garrett Riley. Dabo Swinney brings in the former Clemson offensive coordinator, former SMU and Arkansas head coach, who I know well, to lead the offense for the Tigers. What an insane turn of events. Shout out Bruce Feldman. He broke it right away that he was linked to the job. And I think a lot of people just right off the bat kind of were like, no way, no way. Sure enough, it was pretty much done. So Dabo Swinney gets this guy really quickly, somebody who he could trust. Certainly has been a key part to building up the Clemson program during those early days of the Dabo Swinney era. And Chad Morris is quite the guy. I don't think there's any other way to put it. He's been a part of some really successful offenses. He has been in some really interesting positions over the course of his career. He got SMU kind of back and then was able to scoot over to Arkansas just in time. And then we all know how that went, but it's been a revolving door. And so he took off this last season to watch Chandler Morris's son play at UVA and see that play out. But now he is back in the coaching ranks. He is going to be the full-blown offense coordinator and quarterbacks coach. Now the question is, who do they bring in at the quarterback position? Clemson just did not have a really good system in place, but more importantly, I really do think that they missed on a lot of evaluations. They did not do a good job evaluating the roster. They did not do a good job prioritizing the right things in recruiting. And of course, we all know the world with the transfer portal and how Clemson has played that out. But now they do have Chad Morris back, somebody who knows Dabo Swinney, who's worked for Dabo Swinney, who understands what Dabo Swinney wants. Chad Morris is somebody that I don't know that you can sit here as the hire is now official and say, oh, that's exciting, because Chad Morris just ever since then hasn't really done anything to warrant that kind of excitement. At the same time, a lot of his opportunities haven't been in strong positions where he can kind of impact things too well, or with programs that have been in poor situations as a whole. So yes, for those who don't know, hammer down, left lane. There are so many good Chad Morris sayings, and some that will fire up will get the bristles on your back going. If you're an SMU fan, kind of hearing some of them. Quarter tank of gas is always a good one. There's a lot from the Chad Morris era on the hilltop that a lot of SMU fans and a lot of Arkansas fans will remember, and some might have fond memories at SMU, but most memories have kind of faded, and it's kind of just kind of a joke at this point now, the way everything has really worked out. But Freddie Kitchens is coming over to join the offensive staff. Former North Carolina offensive coordinator who's been around the NFL is coming in to be in an unpaid role for the Clemson Tigers as well. So adding a little bit of help on the offensive side of the ball. He's got a bunch of buyout money coming from North Carolina, so he'll reset over with Dabo Swinney and company as well. I just could not believe it when I saw this come together. So Dabo Swinney, if he hasn't adjusted yet, he better, because he's got to get Chad Morris some talent. He's made some changes across that defense as well in some of the positions. And Tom Allen is getting his son Tommy, I believe, up in an elevated role. and they've tweaked some things on that defensive staff, but they got to get some players. They got to really hit the portal hard, which allegedly they're going to do. We'll see how it pans out. And we'll see who the quarterback is. Could Chandler Morris get a 7th year? And could Chad Morris bring him in to play for him this season? That would be fascinating to watch. Let's end with this. And I kind of forgot about them, but this is a really difficult job and one that I don't know too much about, but this is kind of another pivot to, the thought that I had earlier with Georgia Tech, bringing in a coach that loves the university. And Terry Heffernan has been hired as Stanford's offensive coordinator. He spent the last couple seasons as UVA's offensive line coach and run game coordinator. So obviously they had some success. I think the offensive line for UVA was pretty solid, but he was, of course, at Stanford for a while, spending 2 years as the offensive line coach for David Shaw at Stanford, and brings some NFL experience working with the Bills and the Lions as well. So Tavita Pritchard, the new head coach at Stanford, has his offensive coordinator for his initial staff with the Cardinals. So this is a big decision for Tavita Pritchard, the first-year head coach of the Cardinal, and Andrew Luck, the general manager. But of course, they know each other really well, so this makes a lot of sense for them. We'll see how it goes. I don't know what the offensive identity for Stanford is going to be. I don't know if it's going to look exactly like Andrew Luck when he ran it back in the day, or if they're going to open it up a little bit more, or what. But this is the first offensive hire for Stanford, and might very well be the first hire as a whole. And it comes all the way in January now for the Stanford coaching staff. So they did have a really successful offensive line, I think, at UVA. So this is a good kind of focus point for the Stanford offense and kind of what they want to be. I know they want to be physical. I know they want to bring that brand of offense to the table. And the Cavaliers rushed for 2,500 yards this year. So really, really incredible stuff with Jamari Taylor rushed for 1,000 yards this season. So that is the OCDC roundabout. If we missed one, please let me know in the comments. It is a super league. It's hard to keep up with everybody, but those are the ones I noticed over the last week or so when I was running through and watching on Twitter and things like that, putting my notes together for this show. But one more note here. We're going to save Portal Bonanza for later this week. And of course, we'll talk Miami versus Ole Miss in the college football playoff. But Isaac Brown, massive portal decision that did come down. He is staying at Louisville. This is a big deal for the Cardinals to keep him in the fold. He obviously is an electric football player who does have 2 more years of eligibility, but he's going to be staying with Jeff Brom. Massive news for the Cardinals. Did want to shout that out. That news came down yesterday on Sunday and kind of late-ish Sunday. So big news there. And let's wrap with this. We've got a bunch of ACC basketball to talk about as this league kicked off in a big way. And, now almost 6 days in, we're 6 days into, the ACC basketball season. And a couple of things that stood out right off the bat. UVA on New Year's Eve did get a triple overtime win. Virginia Tech got a triple overtime win over UVA to kick off their new year. I thought that one was important. They did take New Year's Day off. And then Louisville did fall at Stanford. So certainly something to keep a close eye on for this Louisville team, who has kind of been a little up and down over the course of the last couple of days. Has not started the right way in league play, but you have Cal beating Notre Dame, which some ACC fans will really get pumped up about. Then Duke goes on the road and starts off their ACC play by slipping by Florida State 91-87. That is top 10 Duke. But on the other side of that rivalry, SMU took down North Carolina 97-83 in Moody Coliseum. For those of you who don't know in the ACC about Moody Magic, that is exactly that. Boopie Miller, 27 points. Seth Trimble paced Carolina with 22. But, man, the Mustangs played an inspired level of defense. I know 83 points, but For them, that was an inspired level of defense. They held Caleb Wilson in check. Boopy Miller was unbelievable. Just an outstanding game from him. And Corey Washington did a just tremendous job. They kind of raced out to a really solid lead, and then it was tied all of a sudden, 39-39 at half. And SMU really blew the doors off of UNC in the second half, just racing away and never looking back. So a signature win for Andy Enfield. They're squarely in the NCAA tournament right now, and that is a massive resume booster for the Mustangs. And UVA, on the other hand, did bounce back against NC State on Saturday, beating the Wolfpack 76-61. So they came in ticked off after that loss to Virginia Tech, and they made them pay. And on the flip side, Virginia Tech, who's riding a high, did lose to Wake Forest on the road, 81-78. We had Clemson beat Pitt, kind of squeak by Pitt, bottom feeder Pitt in a sense. And then Sunday, no action, but tonight, no action. And then Tuesday night, everybody will get back at it. We do have a top 25, I believe it'll be top 25 matchup still. Duke at Louisville, 6 p.m. Central Time on ESPN. Syracuse takes on Georgia Tech at 6 p.m. on ACC Network. And then NC State at Boston College in a late one, 8 p.m. Central Time on ACC Network. Here is a look at your standings for the ACC right now as it stands as you kick off your week. This is a league that, whoops, I don't know why that did that, but this is a league that is highly competitive right now, just the way it started, and it will be. You know, this is a really nice start for the ACC as a whole, going into their basketball, slate. And ACC coaches will be on the Zoom call starting Monday, the first one of the year. And this is that time of year that ACC basketball fans, this is what you want. This is exciting stuff. And just going into this weekend, a couple notes. The ACC stood 176-55. That's a 76% winning percentage in non-conference action with 3 games remaining in February. The ACC is on pace for its best non-league record since the 2018-19 season. The ACC had a 65% winning percentage in non-conference games last year. They have done an incredible job improving that. But let's look at the standings here. Duke, Clemson starting out 2-0 in the league. Miami, SMU sitting at 1-0 and a half game back. Cal, UVA, Stanford, Virginia Tech, Louisville, NC State, Notre Dame, Wake Forest, North Carolina, Georgia Tech sitting at 1-1. Syracuse, Boston College, 0-1 on the year in ACC play. And then Florida State and Pitt sitting at 0-2 on the league. So some work to be done for Florida State and Pitt, but it's not looking good for those teams. I mean, starting off 7-8 in non-conference and sitting there at 0-2 in league play, I think they're going to be adjustment periods for those teams in this league under new coaching staff with Florida State and then Pitt just looking like struggling. By the way, Micah Shrewsbury. Wow. If you haven't seen that video, Google Michael Shrewsbury, and he's going to pop right up for you guys. But let's end with this. The ACC has had 9 different teams start the season 10-2 or better. That's most among D1 conferences. That is tied for the conference's second most in a single campaign behind that 2017-18 season I talked about earlier. ACC teams have 16 quad 1 net wins from non-conference play. Of the 10 ACC schools with a quad 1 win, Duke is tied for the national lead with 4. 10 teams with at least 1 quad win is tied for the most of any league. So just outstanding job in the non-conference. And now the league turns to what should be a fun start to this league as we get into, the grind. Now it's multiple games a week. Some teams were playing 1 game a week and, had layoffs and this and that between finals and whatnot. Now you're in it. Now you're 2 games a week for the most part. And you're going to be rocking and rolling, traveling coast to coast in some instances. So this is the fun time of year. We're looking forward to bringing it all for you guys on ACC basketball. And, of course, Portal Bonanza. We've got Miami and Ole Miss battling it out in the Fiesta Bowl Thursday night. So stay tuned for our preview on that. And we're looking forward to so much with you guys in this new year. But we appreciate you guys who are here with us, kicking off your Monday on All Access AM. We are here 7 to 8 a.m. Central Time, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 to 9 Eastern Time, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. So please, wherever you are, hit that subscribe button for me. Support our sponsors, Security National Bank. Learn more in the podcast episode description underneath this on our YouTube channel, Spotify, or Apple. And of course, our friends at Corporate Magic and Sportsmo. Start off 2026 having some fun supporting your university with our friends at Sportsmo and Corporate Magic. Look at them today for your next national sales meeting, concert, whatever. They'll do an incredible job for you. Our friends at Corporate Magic. That's corporatemagic.com. So I'm Billy Embody. We appreciate you guys watching this edition of All Access AM. We will see you guys Wednesday morning, and we've got tons to talk about. Looking forward to it. See you guys then. Hit that subscribe button for me. Have a great Monday, everyone.